Mr. Cardarelli, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I did. Is their proposal the same proposal Acciona made?
No.
Because
We don't really, what they're saying, what Mr. Chandler is saying here, it goes from, sorry about the glasses. It is, Bob, it says, we are optimistic that the Article 10 process will result in the approval of our project, which will deliver approximately 200 to 285 megawatts of renewable energy. That in conjunction with what Mr. Gross told Mr. Hershey and me in February of this year, in his last meeting with us, when he said, we're looking at some of the new GE units that can generate up to 3.0 megawatts. Bob, that would entail a whole new plat and a distribution of units, because
that's exactly what I'm wondering. Where the hell are they going to put them?
Well,
you know, it's like we're talking about, I can understand the feeling, and I'm going along with it. The community doesn't want it, that's fine. But what the hell is it we don't want? In other words, what I'm saying is, we've established laws, zoning laws, and all kinds of particulars to keep them out of the town.
The village.
And the village.
And the hamlet. Well,
okay. But what I'm saying is, how the hell do we know what they want?
We don't. They're not talking to us.
You recall a time, some time back, I don't know exactly, maybe it was a month ago, 2 months ago, I asked if there had been communication.
Yes.
And at the time you said no, there wasn't any.
That's correct.
And there still hasn't been any.
And the reason, what they're probably hanging their hat on is our moratorium. Now, our moratorium was predicated on doing something to further the site plan review and action. It said nothing about, it did not say that we are precluded from having a conversation about what they want to do.
So they've been holding off.
Pardon me?
Essentially what you're saying is they've been holding off.
They've been holding off for their own purposes.
Okay.
We don't know what those purposes are.
Right. So they're staying quiet.
Yeah. They certainly had, and I think it really doesn't take rocket science to understand it. They had they had the wherewithal. If they wanted to communicate with us, they could have said, we have read your moratorium, we understand the restrictions, will you talk to us? Had they said that, I would have said yes.
Okay.
Tell us what your plans are. The letter that I sent Mr. Chandler said, what are your plans, what's the current status, and what are your plans going forward? They absolutely ignored that and decided to talk about, you know, this is a presentation that is directed towards Albany. It's not directed towards us.
Dr. Guillermo had a question.
It's my understanding that either Peter Gross or Mr. Chandler did try to speak to Urban, and were told that since there's a moratorium, he cannot speak to them.
Okay. So it's a two-way.
I don't have any information on that.
It's a two-way street.
A two-way street.
Yeah, in a way.
If you just had a meeting this past Saturday that was a secret meeting for leaseholders only, you know, it's still a game.
Well, I think there might be some confusion. British Petroleum is dealing with the planning board and the planning board only. Communications with the town board is meaningless, even though it's important that they stay in touch with the community somehow. The town board has no authority over this project. And why they will not communicate with the planning board is a mystery to me.
If you'd like to make that a little louder, Go ahead.
You didn't have a planning board for several months.
That's not
And
true.
why didn't we have a planning board for several months was because one of the primary conflicted individuals who had one of the largest sets of contracts was in charge of the planning board, and when he gave us 1 day's notice and took two of his cohorts with him, I met very quickly with Mr. Gross and said, really, you have hamstrung yourself as well as this town. So if you have individuals who are representing your interests who decide that they've had enough, whatever enough is, and don't have the courtesy to find normal business protocol of giving me 2 weeks notice, 1 day, okay, that's fine. Mr. Gross, this is what happens when you conduct business with this type of model.
I'd like to add to that by saying we did have a planning board. Even though it was 2 members, we had a planning board. The only thing is that board could not act. But we could have communicated. We could have received communication.
But, Mr. McSherry, didn't you say at your last meeting that they tried to talk to you and you said you didn't have a full board, that you really couldn't do anything?
No, Mr. Gross wrote me and said, it was one of these bait and switch deals where he said, I understand that your planning board has made some progress in reviewing the supplemental EIS. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I said to Mr. Gross, you know what has happened. You're one of your primary spokespersons and an individual who was orienting things towards the company's ends has left and taken 2 of his people with him. And until the town board replaces those individuals, and I have a full complement of people to work with, I cannot, in good conscience, represent the town and your applications.
Okay, so isn't that the same as saying you really can't meet with them?
Had people who were pro-wind not walked off the job.
Really, let's be fair, not to start arguments. Why?
I'm not starting an argument. I'm telling you exactly. I'm telling the truth.
Why did they walk off? Why did they?
Oh, they didn't.
Asked over time for resignations.
I beg your pardon?
I said over time. How many times did people stand up at the board and ask for their resignation? How many times?
This
Is
board.
that why they resigned?
This board never.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest we get on with it.
We don't need to argue about this.
I think
the record is very clear about it.
We have had adequate opportunity for everybody to be heard today. Having said that, I'm going to make a suggestion that we, under your name, over your signature, issue 2 letters. One you've read to BP, and another one to the town board stating that we reviewed Resolution 44 in depth, and our suggestion is we leave things as they are, status quo.
I'll take a second motion. A second? Second. Any discussion? Mr. Cardarelli?
No, I don't think so. I think we've
Exhausted it?
exhausted it.
Okay. All in favor?
Only one last thing.
Please.
I do feel strongly about not knowing enough. I really do. In other words, it's so vague. But the only thing I acquiesce to is the demands of the community. If the community doesn't want something, who the hell am I to say let's take it? But from my own personal point of view, it's damn vague as to what the hell's going on. And if it's deliberate, then it's like a poker game. They're holding those cards pretty close. I mean, that's the feeling I've gotten.
Well, there must be some reason why they don't want to deal with this planning board.
Okay.
I will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.